Alright guys, I've had a few questions off some people. Apologies about the glasses, these ones I certainly shouldn't have gone to Specsavers. Every pair of glasses I've got for them have just seemed shockingly crap. The lenses fall out and they break. They're very prone to breaking. But anyway, first one is, do I regret moving back to Europe? The answer to that's absolutely not. The Philippines, for me, is somewhere that if I was retiring, I'd have stayed there. But I'm not retiring. The reason being, it is a bit of an adult's playground in the sense of it's not all about the obvious trade. It's about the fact that it's got a lot more freedoms. You know, for me, riding around a motorcycle without helmet, wearing flip-flops if I feel like it, building stuff if I feel like it, and just generally not relying on being forced down this day-to-day drudgery of work, is what the Philippines is about. That's it. Because your cost of living is lower, and if you can find ways to make money online, etc., it goes a lot further, which means you've got a lot more freedom. You can work 3 months, 6 months of a year, and be sustainable. That's the reality of it. With the apartment rentals that we had, plus the other little businesses, we didn't actually need to actually work at all. For me, I can't sit still anyway, so it is a case of I need to be pottering around doing something, because I'm not doing anything, I'm doing nothing. If I'm doing nothing, I get really bored really quick. So the point being is, from my perspective, I could retire there, but with the age group I was when I originally went out there and where I am now, my commitments are around the family, so moving to Europe benefits the family long term. We've got access to a lot of things like good health care, passports for the kids long term, because let's face it, having a Filipino passport doesn't get you very far. Having a Spanish or a UK passport is far more beneficial for them in their adulthood. Financially, I was thinking about this last night. I mean, if I sold up, I've got at least 200k wrapped up in this house, which is nearly all mine, you know, in the sense of it's nearly all paid for. I've got investments. I could actually just wrap it up and go to the Philippines tomorrow, and probably wouldn't have to work for at least a decade. And then obviously I'll be hitting my 60s or whatever. But in all reality, because I'm 50, well, currently 50, 51 later on this year, but a lot of my stuff now is around the kids. So for example, going to see the Green Day concert last weekend, really good, spend time with my son. His musical ability is really good. My daughter's progression at school, she's very good at her art. My daughter in the UK seems to be doing okay as well. So your priorities do change as you get older. The same with work. I can start stepping back down on work now because the house is nearly paid. The politics of work I've stepped back from. I'm not interested. They're all still fighting with each other, but I'm just sitting there going, do what you want. I've got my own stuff to do. So I don't get absorbed into it, and that's a key thing to the majority of things in life, is don't get suckered into the crap that's out there. Is actually focus on what you want to do and head down that road. And so no, I don't regret moving back to Europe. Also managed to pretty much focus on my degree. I do think degrees are pretty much worthless. I think it's more to demonstrate that you'll follow a path dictated to you, and that you're easy to control. They're not free thinking courses. I mean, my view is I like physics, I like chemistry, predominantly physics. I'm not a fan of chemistry I'm more theory based. So I find physics because it has more potential to be right or wrong, it's a bit more free thinking. Where I find like the business course I'm doing at the moment, they assume that you have to accept you're a white male and you're the scum of the earth. I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, otherwise, why am I doing Black History? Why am I doing LGBTQ? Why am I doing? None of these things are relevant to me. Oh yeah, but your employees might. Well, what the hell's that got to do with what work they're doing? I don't care if they're prancing around at the gay pride at a weekend or whatever. I want to know if they bloody done the reports for Monday. I'm not interested in what they're doing outside of work. This stuff shouldn't be in the workplace as far as I'm concerned. John thrown off the course. So yeah, I don't regret moving back to Europe. And even with the elections you just had now, there's been a big swing from the left to the right. And what gets me is to go left to far right. It's the same as you listen to the news, they'll go, oh, it's gone far right, everything's far right. They've won against the liberal blah blah blah. Liberal? Sorry? Why don't we say far left? It's an absolute clown show on that sense, and those are the sort of things that do bother me in the West, is the false media and the lying, the deception. Yes, they bother me. In the Philippines, not part of it, because you don't really get involved in what's going on locally. You're not allowed to vote, so why bother? Why would you want to get annoyed with the politics that are going on? Okay, so that's the first question. Was the Philippines worth splitting a career? So, when I went out of the Philippines, I was, I think, at 32 at the time. So I actually went out there sort of halfway through my, in the middle of my career development. The reality is, I had more opportunities when I was out in the Philippines. I got to work in the Middle East. I got to meet people from all over the world. I got friends in so many different organisations and networks that you could even pull in favours if you wanted to, because you're mates. I mean, there's some of the guys that work for me out in the Middle East will tell you, I brought them out to the Middle East. You know, these people were like, you know, they needed some, you know, they hit some hard times for various reasons, and I've got them jobs out in the Middle East. They come and work for us. So, in one way, you may not get your degree, but I don't see my degree as anything of real value personally, because what's on the course is mediocre in my personal opinion, but the basis of it, the bullet points of, oh, you need to know more about this, you need to know, my library's there. It's all the books that I'm reading. It's not on there at the minute, they're on the other side of the room. But I've probably read at least another 60 books around specifics that relate to improved management. The bizarre thing is, the companies I work with don't do any of this stuff anyway. They're mediocre companies in that sense. And even if you talked about it, they become so defensive rather than actually going, oh, well, what do you recommend, Matt? Is there any books you would recommend on that? Because if I don't want to speak to you directly, well, you know, what do you mean my management style is bullying and causing a massive churn of staff? What do you mean? No, there's none of that engagement. It's like they were the problem. Yeah, but it's not a they is in a singular. It's a they in 150 people. It's obviously not them at all. Well, anyway, yeah. So for me, it was worth splitting the career because I got to travel when I was younger and do a lot more, and I had to be self-sufficient because there's no healthcare support, there's no welfare support. Everything I did, I generated to support my family and survived out there quite well. Developed a call centre from scratch, built peso machines, coin slot, what they call it, computer operated machines. Had lots of different business things that we did. The reality is, you would not get the opportunities of that in the West. Why? Too much bloody paperwork and everybody in your pocket before you've earned your first fiver. So yeah, Philippines was actually very positive in that sense because it gives you an opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet and gives you the space to do it. It's not in your pocket while you're trying to develop something. It's like you're on your own. We're not going to cut your benefits because we know you're trying to start a business, but let's punish you before you get started. Yeah, but if you've got benefits, you shouldn't. Well, look, my view in the UK, there's a lot of people on benefits. I'd rather 90% of them try to start businesses and get ahead and break free of that system than stay on benefits. That's my personal view on it. Here's another one. What do you think of the woke West? Despise it. I absolutely despise it. You look on LinkedIn, it's the most narcissistic, disgusting entity that's demonstrating what's wrong with the world. We'll celebrate women's business, women in construction, women this, women that, but men aren't allowed to do that sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I think the problem with men is they're too easygoing generally. Not just white men, just men generally. I mean, if you look at the people that are BLM, they predominantly seem to be the women pushing the agenda. Black women are pushing the agenda. If you look at the whole Palestine thing around London, it seems to be a mix of people from the East and a lot of liberal women, shall we call them? White women. The demographic seems to be arguing on everything. Well, what's your thoughts on that? I'm not going anywhere near it. I'm not touching with a bar's pole. I didn't get into that conflict. It's not my country in that conflict. It's not for me to tell anybody how to run their country or deal with things that have been done to them or they've done to others. None of my business. That's my view on it. Simple as that. Very cut and dry. What I don't like is the way it's took over the education systems. And like I said, my degree, I was shocked how bad it is. You know, oh, here's a newsletter on why you're a horrible white man and you should celebrate the Black History Month. Oh, it's Gay Pride Month now, guys. Shock horror. It used to be a Pride Day, and shock horror. All of this seems to leak in from America. And I know I've got a lot of Americans on this channel, but there was, I remember, it was back when, what's his name from New York, the president, the mayor of New York, was he, what's his name, Giuliani or whatever his name is, I forgot his name, Giuliano? I forgot his name. It's to do with when they got tough on crime. I remember that talking about how New York had fell into crime. This goes back to probably the 90s, and it was relevant but irrelevant. But they were talking about the state of crime in New York and why they started this hardline system there. And they were saying that the UK mirrored America 5 years with a 5-year timescale difference. It's true. It really is. If you look at it, the decline of certain things you can see is being mirrored. You look at the rise of the fast food restaurants. There is a mirror going on there. Even here in Spain, we've now got this is a bizarre thing. We went to Madrid to see Green Day. We've come back, and there's now a something junior restaurant, which is an American restaurant, and 2 Popeyes have opened up. They weren't there before. There is a transition of this stuff, and that's one of the problems with globalization. You do encourage this sort of stuff to go on, which then mixes with obesity, then the lobbying and everything else. So you can see many of the problems move forward in the sense that they come out from, say, America is dealing with it itself. We inherit and encourage the same stuff to happen to us, and we end up with the same problems. That is one of the problems, yeah. So the wokeism is a major concern because, let's face it, if you're promoting people simply because of their skin colour, whether they're in a wheelchair or what their demographic was originally, over people that actually are better qualified, better educated, better skilled, all you're doing is dumbing down industry in every sector. I do not want a woke surgeon working on me the same as I don't want a woke bloody pilot. I want the best pilot and the best surgeon. That's it. It's not about fairness. It's about common bloody sense. The whole point in life is the unit of equality is not based on you selecting somebody over others simply because of, oh, he's had a tough upbringing, poor child. No. Anybody can work their way out of this stuff. One of the problems I see in society these days is a lack of role models. Now, for me, I look at things around the basis of, if something's failing, I need to make change. So even though I could be in a company I absolutely detest, the reality is I'm in that company. I can go here, I can go there, I can do something about it. I don't sit there and go, oh, it's because I'm white, it's because of this. I accept that I will be overshadowed because of being white. But it doesn't mean I give up on it. It doesn't mean I'm going to blame everybody around me for me not achieving. If you're in an industry where they're going to make it that the norm, my thoughts are, how do you shape an industry in a better, more progressive way? And progressive doesn't mean liberal. This is the thing, I think that's another thing they bloody took over. Progressive is when you recognise that it's not working and progressively try and work around it. So imagine having a business that does not focus on diversity, equality, whatever nonsense it is next week, and it focuses on output. So you want to hire the best people, you create a culture of equality. The culture of equality is you treat people the same. So that means, to me, if somebody's a janitor or somebody's a CEO, I speak to them exactly the same. Yeah, I will see in business people go, well, I'm a director, you can't talk to me like that. Who the hell do you think you are? I could punch you in the face. What you think you're going to hide around behind this false veil? You're a moron. So the point being is, I think there's an opportunity to actually just push this stuff to the side. And I think this is part of where we're seeing a bit of transition at the moment in Europe, because the EU has just, the EU elections have just seen a hammering from people, I'd probably say central and right, because they keep going far right, and it's not far right. The majority of these people are actually biased in the sense of trying to keep in the middle. You know, I'll be perfectly blunt with you guys. I am normally in the middle. The left were there, and they've gone there, and then off the page. So I started off here, and they're trying to make out, oh, you've gone further right. I haven't moved. They've moved. Even today, like I said, when you hear the is it DW, the German media, they'll go far right, and then they'll say the party name of the other parties, like the Green Party. That is the far right bad, but Green Party. They're creating the divide, but people are seeing through it. So I have to admit, I'm not a fan of Farage. I'm not a fan of Tommy Robinson. I respect that Tommy Robinson stood up where others wouldn't around the grooming gangs and stuff like that. I respect the fact that he has put himself on the firing line to actually bring this to the surface and try and get it to justice. But a lot of his politics are a little off skew for me. Doesn't mean I detest the guy, doesn't mean I hate the guy, it just means he's not somebody I would vote for. Farage, the same. But at the same time, I like Farage in the sense of he actually says what he thinks. Doesn't mean he's right, doesn't mean he's wrong. It means that he actually speaks freely. A lot of the politicians out there are so worried about their pay that they don't speak freely. If you look at the way Labour's ousting people when it, around things that were on their Twitter and things years ago and things like that, I find it peculiar because I could be a racist 15 years ago, but then spend time in communities that I disliked, and my viewpoints changed because at that point in time, everything I knew was from what I knew, where today is from what I know since then. So the fact is, your perspective can change massively in a time frame. So I do not agree with attacking people for something they said 10, 15 years ago, because everything's contextual. And that's one of the things I do hate is cancel culture. I mean, I've got to admit, I don't hate anybody. I've got no problem with asking people the questions that some people will not ask. When I worked with Edward up in Norfolk, he's from Zimbabwe. When I asked him what he thought about white farmers, everyone, the way people were gasping, you'd have thought I'd asked him if, is it all right if I sleep with your daughter or something? But in reality, he'd never been approached that way before. But his response was, he sees the same problems that everyone else has seen with Zimbabwe. And it's not just about the governments, the fact is it's the mentality of individuals. But I'm not going to get into that one, simply because we're talking about the West. Next question. Is the diet healthier in the Philippines? Now, if you're talking about the local diet, I would say depends what you're eating. Because everyone knows lechon baboy is the big thing. Every time you go to a party, everyone goes, oh, lechon, which is roast pig. And you're going, everyone knows, every time I go to a party, everyone says this. As if wow, there's a roast pig. But there's a roast pig at every party. But everyone likes lechon. So, obviously not healthy. Dried fish is not healthy. There is a phrase called high blood in the Philippines, which is relating to the content of salt. There's a lot of salt in the diet. I would say the opportunities to eat healthier there. There's a lot of fruit available on your doorstep. The lack of access to microwave food is obviously a plus, because then you have to cook fresh. And to be fair, in our house, that's unfair. The only place I think I can recollect in my head that has ready meal type stuff is the Iceland Overseas here in Spain. Because I go to the Spanish supermarkets, they don't seem to have very much. They might have one or two freezers, but even then it's normally things like gambas, what do you call it? See, I said it in Spanish, I can't remember the English one. They're prawns and shrimps, things like that. But the point being is, I think Philippines, you can eat healthy quite well, and the sweat, because of the temperature and the access to doing stuff, if you're out in the provinces, means that you can keep fit quite easy. You don't see many fat Filipinos unless you're heading into the cities. The diet there, it can be very, very good, because a lot of stuff's unavailable a lot of the time as well, so even if you wanted it, you can't get it. Which moves on to alcohol. One of the biggest problems I see with foreigners there is alcoholism. Beyond the stuff that they do stupid, getting in fights with, well, probably alcohol related, fighting with local Filipinos and that when they're drunk and then get killed. Yeah, so just be aware of that. Just because alcohol is cheap doesn't mean use it daily. If you go in there, get a hobby, get an interest, get something that keeps you going. Motorcycles I love, so for me, getting on a motorbike and heading off around the Philippines, there's over 7,000 islands. the opportunities are there to do stuff. Use it. Don't become tied with sitting in the house, which is very easy, because if you get married or whatever, you'll find the people around you want to do everything for you. Get out of that rut. You need to do stuff yourself. Like you'll get people go, I'm going to the supermarket, what do you want? I'll get it for you. Say no, go myself. And keep yourself motivated. You've got to keep yourself moving, because other people will help you sit down. It is something out there you've got to be aware of. Oh, is it weird to go into Asia to meet foreign women? It's an interesting question. From my perspective, meeting my wife wasn't like the sort of setups that most people that go out there would have had. I'm not saying I'm better or worse or different or whatever, just that I had no intention of going to the Philippines. It wasn't on my radar. It was all very random. And we're happily married for nearly 20 years now. I look at Western society and the rise of things like OnlyFans and that, and I find it quite disgusting, to be perfectly honest. Strong, independent women bleaches her butthole. You know, what the that about? It's disgusting. It's shameless. Doesn't mean that Asia's immune from things that are going on, because poverty is there, there's other issues there, etc., etc. But the road to a better life can often be with a foreign husband, and the reality is there's many women looking for that. In the same way, often a lot of the best women are the ones not looking for that, which you may have to seek out, because they're not proactively looking for a husband or whatever. But you'll find that those women, because they're not proactively looking, whatever, if you do manage to get a decent woman, it'll be lifelong. I think a lot of the people that have a lot of criticism around the women are often A, going with the first woman to me, B, often women that I would find undesirable. I can pick up on people quite quickly, on their mentality, the way they act and whatever, and I see a lot of them where you think that marriage ain't going to last 6 months. Or as soon as they get to America, they're putting in, divorce, give us your house, give us this. You've got to think about this. This is a lifelong decision. The commitment could bankrupt you, or put you in a noose, or do something else to you, simply because you're infatuated with an individual. As soon as you're infatuated, that's the moment to stand back and think, hang on a minute, I'm not thinking properly. Let's slow it down. Let's spend a bit of time together. Let me go and date some other people first. I want to go and travel around the Philippines. I'm not going to commit to anything yet. All that sort of stuff. You know, if you come back and she's already gone with somebody else, well, how long was her commitment to you for? A week? Well, imagine if you married her. So, from a perspective, I do think there's many naive guys out there think they'll just go out and meet somebody and that's it, she's going to love me because I've got money and I'll pay the bill. Look, it's not just a financial transaction. If it is a financial transaction, you can't complain if she decides to upstage you when somebody with more money or whatever comes along and takes away from you, because you've selected somebody that's on that step. Isn't that why you're avoiding a lot of the women in the West? I want this, I want that, I want a bigger house, you need to take me out, you need to pay for this, that. You're going down the same path. You need to be looking for somebody that is more of an equal. But also, there's a key to all this. There's nothing that says you have to get married. You can move to Asia and just live a happy life out there. If it doesn't work out, fine. See ya. I mean, the dating pool's massive there. I mean, I've seen guys in the bloody 80s still dating women. So it's not as if it's short. I mean, the women here in the West are whinging that bloody men ain't find them desirable anymore. Well, I'll be perfectly blunt. From my perspective, if it wasn't with my wife, I'm quite happy alone. I can't be bothered with the aggravation with Western women. They want too much and often too little. My wife, complete opposite. She just does her own thing. I do my own thing. We spend a lot of time together. We like being around each other. But we're not driving with a nagging ear and, oh, yeah, I'm so special. I'm an independent woman, but can you give me half of your money as well? No. I can't be bothered with it. I really can't. So, I wouldn't say it's weird or strange to be doing it, or undesirable, or you're a sex pest or anything like that. I'd actually say you're actually being constructive on your own life, because if you get it wrong, she's going to be in your pocket for the rest of your life and probably took half of everything you had before you met. I've got a relative of mine who would love to do something nasty to I'm not going to mention names, because she's sitting there with half his pension. She stole, allegedly, over £80,000 when they left. She took half the house, and then she sits there and makes stories up about him that weren't true. But at the same time, where is he now? Yeah, he's remarried, he's got a new life, etc. But he really hates the fact that she robbed him of 80 grand, and the banks that don't want to know, because obviously it was a joint account, and then at the same time she's sitting there with half his pension every month. So there's this downside, but she was a Western woman. But these are the things. You don't have to get married. The reason I got married is my wife is a Catholic, etc. Her family have a religious belief, etc. My wife's got her views on religion, which are more aligned with me, which is, well, to most things we just get on, because my view is very similar. You don't need an ivory tower to pray to whatever God you want. The ivory tower is just milking it. The ivory tower being the church. You can divide the two. You can have the bloody book, wander around with your Bible. That's it. That's my personal view on it, and my wife's got a similar view. I shouldn't really say that, but it's true. Is Passport Bros going to end? Absolutely not. Passport Bros is more likely to increase with the way the woke culture has gone. When you start separating groups of men, so firstly, the white guy, you've now alienated him through feminism and all that stuff that's going on, and now guys from other demographics are seeing exactly the same. Bizarrely, they go, don't want to play anymore, because guys by nature want an easy life. You know, a guy can have a house and not need to paint the walls every year. He can paint the walls once and go, that still looks fine, I'll leave it for another year. A lot of women cannot do that because they're too busy trying to keep up with the woman down the road or whatever goes on in a woman's head. I'm not going to assume, but I've been there. I've been the bit where I've had the phone call, oh, I want to decorate the back room. You're going, don't do anything to the back room. I'm tired, I've had a long week, 16-hour days, all week. And then come home at 8 o'clock on a Friday night and she stripped the bloody wallpaper in the back room. And then complaining most of the weekend because you're refusing to re-wallpaper it in a new thing. I've been there, got that t-shirt. Guys are easygoing. They don't want all this drama and aggro. There's a guy I was working for recently where I was actually resigning because he said something that was just like, I'm wasting my time here. Because there's a very toxic individual Um, and he got onto this thing because she's always creating problems. Many people have mentioned it. And he said, well, you're contractual, she's emotional. Did you hear what you just said? I'm trying to do the business stuff that is required while she's farting around with crocodile tears and backstabbing. Yeah. You're never going to find, so that person will always keep more and more. Horrible woman. So I don't think Passport Bros are going to end. The whole OnlyFans stuff re-emphasises the fact that women who think they're overvalued are selling themselves online and then wondering why they can't find a date because everybody knows what they do online. The reality is, I don't think we're more conservative. I think we have a different mindset. So even though men may spend more time online looking at this type of stuff, I would say we're less inclined to actually date somebody in that industry. If I'm wrong, let me know. But at the same time, is it just because the women are more conservative overseas? I think a lot of the women are more respectful, but also I think a lot of the women value the men, especially if you've got deadbeat men that can be prevalent in some of these societies. So if you have a lot of your own population that breed a lot of kids and don't have marriages, don't settle down and like to be a player, as they say, what woman is going to be more attracted to those types of guys than somebody they can settle down with? See, in the West, they assume it's all going to go their way, but women, single independent women. And I don't mean this in a me sitting there going, I hate women type thing, because I don't. The reality is, I hear it all the time in the work environment, how people drum themselves up, and you just go, shut up. Just do your job. You don't need a gold star just because you filled a form in. I mean, I finished a certificate last week and got another qualification. I didn't even announce it on LinkedIn. We have a different mentality. Guys do. We're more prone to just getting on with life. It's to our detriment too often. But this is part of why guys are going to the West. The argument becomes, you're scum, you're this, you're that, the other. Not the reality of, so why are you going to women in the West? Women in the East, sorry. Why are you leaving the West to go to the East? Why are we so bad? How dare you ask me to look in the bloody mirror? Who the hell are you? And that's part of the problem. Would I retire in the Philippines? Quite possibly. The reason being is Europe has silly inflation at the minute. Now, I've been quite lucky that my salary growth has been okay. But most people are not in that same environment. The same as I'll quite happily create a new venture. That's why I'm starting to look at get my asset surveying stuff going, because I need that extra income to push me over the next threshold of what I want to achieve. So the fact is, I'm in a work environment where I'm sort of siloed off. Suits me. So I'll work, do my job. Don't really need to go above and beyond because there's no point. There is no promotion. There is no. Well, let's be. I haven't heard a positive word out of the guy I work for. Sorry, the person who is my line manager. I don't work for him. Very clear. I work for the business. Man, that sounds a bit wrong. No, it really isn't. Guy doesn't listen, doesn't do it. So no, I just do what I need to do. I'm not really engaged with it the way I should be. But why is that? It's because he doesn't listen at all. Hasn't since he started. Doesn't mean I'm bitter or whatever, because I just changed my focus. Like I said, it's a guy thing. We start going, okay, well, you want to be a bit of a dictator, and you carry on that way. I'm just going to go off and do something else. So, do my asset surveying, sort out my barcode printer, get that up and running, start developing the websites, being progressive with stuff. Do not procrastinate on what's wrong with the situations. I will not change that guy. You cannot even communicate with him. As soon as you start saying something that he does not want to hear, he will talk over the top of you to try and shut you up, because he doesn't want the truth. When the same person says to me that somebody doesn't trust him, I just smiled. And he doesn't ask, why are you smiling? Well, simple response. Why are you telling me? Why didn't you ask the guy why he doesn't trust you? You didn't even follow up with the question, do I trust you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's been so many incidents that I would actually say you're the most untrustworthy individual I've ever worked with. Anyway. So, yeah, Passport Bros will continue. Will it grow? It's hard to say, because one of the problems you're getting is the globe is a spinning entity. So with the wokeism stuff, I can see it growing, but at the same time, you've got to understand Asia is also developing in its own way as well. So we're all on one planet, so things can become very skewed and change very quickly. I do see, you know, if I was a single guy somewhere between my 20s and say, whatever, I mean, I'm not joking, even if I was like, if I was single in 70, my kids had left home and come and see me at Christmas if I'm lucky. I'm not going to say, you know, if I was single, then I'd go there, even if it was just from the companionship point of view, the fact that people talk to you. Now, don't get me wrong, where I'm in Spain, neighbours are fantastic. Everyone talks to each other, even when they're arguing. It's the environment. You've got to assess where you are. If you had a decent enough pension, I would look at it. If you've got a pension that maybe not fantastic, and you're staying afloat where you are, but you're not moving forward, I would still look at it, because the rental costs will be cheaper in comparison. So for example, if you can get your, say, British pension, and it's X amount per week, and your rent in the UK saying, I have no idea what the rent, I mean, my rent's horrendous, so I'm not even going to mention one, but say you're paying £600 a month, right? In the Philippines, you will be able to get somewhere, you could probably get, well, whatever your budget wants. This is the thing, you know, how much is the house? Well, if you go in a bed spacer, it could be like less than a £5 a day. I think some people are paying £5 a week, which is a shared room. But if you then get up to a 1-bedroom apartment, it could be 150 quid a month, possibly all inclusive, you know, except for food, but you know, your electric bill, unless you use an aircon. So the opportunities are there, and if I was in those age groups, I would certainly do it. Healthcare, different story. Now, I'll be honest with you, if I was hitting 70 or something on my own or whatever and going out there, I'd accept I'm going to die there, right? They will fleece you for everything you've got. If you hit something like a heart attack or something like that, you're very likely to die there, unless you've got some serious cash behind you, and even then it's 50-50. So you've got to bear that in mind, that may be your end point in life. And my personal view is, I entered this earth kicking and screaming and covered in blood, and that's the way I'm leaving it. That's my personal viewpoint. Whatever comes, comes. I'm not going to be, oh, what if this happens? To hell with that crap. Although I fully understand why others will go, Matt, you're an ass, you shouldn't do that. It's like, I fully understand your point. Like I said, this is my perspective. Do I still speak to people in the Philippines? Yeah, to be fair, the younger ones I do. The older ones, the majority of them are already dead. Bear in mind, I left the Philippines over nearly a decade ago. So a lot of the older guys aren't there anymore. I do speak to the younger ones. There is a few of the guys that were in their early 60s when I was out there. They're all doing well. And to be fair, it's the ones that are actually very proactive in doing stuff. I'm not going to go into names and stuff because that's unfair. But the majority of guys that I went out there with, met out there, because I didn't go out there with anybody. I'd say about 85% of them aren't here anymore. And then even some of the younger ones aren't there anymore. Some of them drank themselves to death. Simple as that. That's why I say stay away from the juice. But some of the others, they weren't in great health when they went out there, but also the ones who were in good health still had a lot of mileage on the clocks. But were they happy? I don't know of any of them that weren't. That's the reality. People were happy out there. That's why you'll see people like your Barry Jordans that don't want to go back to the US. I don't even know if he's left the bloody immigration cell yet, that guy. But the fact is, they're happier there. You can live on a lot less. And like I said, it's a bit more like an adult's playground. And I don't mean that in a, like I said, a dominatrix or that type of thing. I mean in the fact that you have a lot more responsibility for yourself. You can be killed out there quite easily. You know, you fall out with somebody, you can get a bolo, which is like a machete. Somebody will sort you out with one of those, or a shot, or whatever. Argue with a mayor son, or for me, it's how I actually enjoy society. Why is that? Being responsible for your own actions. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some complete twats out there, but most of them you won't engage with unless you actually engage with them because they don't want to speak to you in the first place. So a lot of this is where people bring it on themselves. Now, when you get into corruption, business, and other stuff like that, it's a minefield. It's not something I'd recommend. It's one of the reasons that the country stays where it stays. You know, it's not a booming entity industry-wise because the corruption's so bad. But if you're there just enjoying life, mind your own business, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be okay. I mean, even with people I know that have had a bit of bother, my advice has been simply just move. It's not worth the aggravation. Somebody might kill you over something trivial, because to you it's trivial, to them you've insulted them, or it was their livelihood, or whatever goes through their head, and you may not even know what's going on in their head. You suddenly become the bane of everything that's wrong in their life. You're responsible for everything. Sounds childish, but some of these people are childish. That's the grim reality of it. You've got to take that on board. But one thing I will say, if you want to go out there, do it. If you don't think it's for you, don't do it. But I highly recommend it. I highly enjoyed my time out there, and I would happily move there again. I mean, let's face it, I've got property out there already, so it's not as if I've got issues of where do I live or whatever. It's already set up. I've still got a lot of friends out there, and I know a ridiculous amount of Filipino friends and contacts. So yeah, I said friends and contacts, because I know when a lot of people use me for whatever reasons, you know, not financially. It's more to do with that, you know, they're wanting help with whatever. I suppose it is financially. You know, a lot of people relied on me for work, etc. But at the same time, I've got a lot of good friends out there. So yeah, and I think that's the last of my questions that I'll give it. But yeah, the key to this though, this is the shock horror thing, guys. I'm going to finish on it. You need to make your own decisions. I can outlay my personal perspective, my viewpoints, my understanding, my thoughts, etc. But ultimately, everything's up to you and your decisions you want to make. The Philippines, for me, is a wonderful place, and it has a lot of good stuff and a lot of bad stuff. Because the good stuff, most of it's under your control. The bad stuff, a lot of it's not. What do you mean? Typhoons, earthquakes, some of the crime stuff that goes on. But you can reduce the risks for that stuff by a bit of proactive thinking. I've been out there. I mean, there's some. If you go back to the older videos, you'll see some of the stuff on typhoons. Been out there in earthquakes. Been woken at silly o'clock, where you can feel something like somebody's rocking the bed, like that, not like it, the whole thing. And I put my foot up on the wall because I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? And it's because the whole building's doing that. And then you running downstairs to find where the kids are, my wife is, and getting the kids under, because they say go under the table. The table's a bloody field out there. Why are you sitting in a bloody concrete building? Drag everybody outside out into the field. There is stuff there that is out of your control, and part of the easiest way of a life out there is recognising what is and what isn't under your control. The stuff that isn't under your control, accept it. Things like in a while. In a while has no time scale whatsoever. The reason being is the person you speak to probably doesn't know when it's going to turn up. So if you're waiting for car parts, like I was, in a while could be a week, a month, a year. They don't know. People being inconclusive with things, you get used to it. Everything's over there. Over there is any bloody where. On the shelf, in the next village, God knows. But you've got to accept that's the way people are. And you just have to keep asking about 5 times until they say, yeah, it's if you go across the road, down there, it's over. It's just the way people are. Because if you can take the stress out of things by just accepting things as they are, like immigration, where you've got people going, do you want to skip the queue? Do you want to go the expressway? A bit of corruption. Me, not in a rush. I go immigration, I book a day, I go and sit down there. And rather, I don't sit there and think, well, I'll pay him a bribe. I sit there and go, oh, if I gave him the bribe, I'll be here less time, but if I keep the money, that buys me lunch. I'm going to buy myself lunch. I'm going to treat myself. It's all about perspective. But anyway, guys, I'm leaving it at that because it's too hot in here. I need to open my doors, and they've got bloody breaker out over there. So it's boiling in here because I haven't got aircon upstairs except in the room over there. I've got the door shut because I'm not doing the video. All right, take it easy.